Power of the Pen with LaWanna Bradford, expanding the impact and influence of authors from around the world. If you want to change the world, pick up your pen and write, said Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Books are uniquely portable magic. Power of the Pen spotlights authors from around the world. Listen as authors share messages that educate, motivate, inspire, and entertain. Join us each Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am LaWanna Bradford, your host, as well as best-selling author. And the one thing that I love about Power of the Pen, for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, this is a platform designed to celebrate and elevate women authors and their voice. And it's also for authors who have written books that influence women and their rise in today's world. I'm excited because I have a special guest today, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, and she is an author, she's a speaker, she's a teacher, she is an influencer, she is a TV show host and producer, and the author of a new book, which is Transform with Dr. TAS, Healthy Recipes. Let's think about that. In today's world, we are inundated with so many options. Right? Whether we eat healthy or choose that donut or that fast food. And it's challenging because we are so busy day in and day out, trying to be everything for everyone and still keep ourselves first. But this conversation, we're going to spotlight why Dr. Teresa decided to write this book, her health journey, and how we can take some simple recipes to begin fueling our lives to live our best and most vibrant self.
Educate, encourage, empower, transform. As much as we wish for more of the same, we long for something different. Our journeys are comprised of small steps moving us from daydreams to reality. The measure of a person is to understand life lessons and use them to fuel their future. DQ Consulting, LLC specializes in fusing your ideas and life lessons to help you create your desired future if you don't quit. For consulting, coaching, and mentoring, visit AskDrTaz.com and contact author, talk show host, motivational speaker, coach, media personality, and home cook, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, better known as Dr. Taz, at drtastronger@gmail.com.
DQ Consulting.
DQ Consulting, LLC.
So with that, I want to bring on Dr. Teresa. How is it going?
It is going great, LaWanna. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today. So you have been on your own health journey. And health has always been important to you, and you found yourself suddenly battling weight problems.
Mm-hmm.
Any of us experience that, especially as we start to get closer to that middle age. And when menopause hits, we're like, okay, you pass by a window and you're wondering, who is that woman, right?
Exactly.
You suddenly don't recognize the person that you're seeing reflected back at you because you don't feel that like that person, or maybe sometimes you do. Sometimes you may feel the weight, if you forgive the pun, the weight of the weight. But you took a very drastic move in correcting your health, and you opted to have gastric bypass surgery.
Sleeve surgery.
Sleeve surgery. Okay, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So for our audience and for me, educate me on what's the difference between the bypass and the sleeve.
The bypass, like I can really educate you. My stomach is shaped more like a small banana, and if I'm getting it wrong, guys, don't hold against me. But bypass is more drastic, and the thing to think about is the amount of the consumption of your nutrients, because there are multiple types of metabolic surgeries. There's one that the individual doesn't absorb any food through their through their gastric system, because you have to think about it. It's like as we temper with the, the system gets shorter, the colon, everything gets shorter, and different things happen along that pathway. And some individuals who've had surgery, they don't absorb any nutrients from their food. But for me, I didn't have gastric bypass surgery. Gastric bypass surgery has probably been around 30 years or more now. And it's the standard that physicians were doing years ago. But gastric sleeve surgery is not as invasive. And also, I still have more, think of it this way, more of my gastric system for my food to work through. And that was not a medical explanation, guys. But there is a difference. And LaWanna, if I could just say this, if anyone was thinking about metabolic surgery, you need to really research that and talk with your doctor. And there's a lengthy process that individuals go through in order to be cleared for any of those surgeries. But again, you need to do your research, because everything is not appropriate for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And I put this disclaimer here that this show is for infotainment purposes. Yes. Only we are going to highlight this amazing cookbook that you have written. And if you do have any medical concerns, or you want to know more about gastric type surgeries or procedures, please contact the appropriate medical professional. Again, this is not intended to treat, diagnose. We're just talking about a journey. But the key thing is the journey to overall wellness. So even though you made this choice, you have a show where you are inspiring, educating, encouraging people to embrace not only who they are, but to celebrate a life of wellness, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And as an author, you've used your books to help. Your first book is Transformation, to help transform,
yes,
through informing others, yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be bold and to show up for themselves. And this book, as a cookbook, some people don't think about cookbooks as being transformational. I would argue that it is. So let's talk a little bit about this cookbook. Why did you write it, and why now?
LaWanna, my first book was actually Stronger: How Overcoming Life's Adversity Can Push You Into Your Purpose. And it's my story. It's autobiographical. It's my story about overcoming some physical issues, sexual abuse, and also community violence, police violence. And so it was very important for me to get my story out. But once I wrote the book, I realized that I was still becoming the individual that I am to ultimately be. And so I wrote Transformation. And Transformation is a workbook. It's 10 lessons, but it asks you questions, because again, I've always been focused on wellness and personal growth, even when I was a young girl. And I think it comes out of the sexual abuse and how I developed my own coping mechanisms to deal with the world that I was living in at that time. So once I wrote Transformation, I had been diagnosed with Graves' disease. And once I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, we radiated my thyroid instead of taking it out. And so my endocrinologist, we could not stop the weight gain, because I had lost weight. And then once we realized what was wrong, I gained weight and we couldn't stop it. And she tried lots of different things. And so ultimately, as I was developing other medical issues because of the weight, like sleep apnea, elevated liver enzymes, being borderline diabetic, we looked at the gastric sleeve surgery. And so we did that. Well, again, with any type of metabolic surgery, there is psychological evaluation that you go through also. And so for me, I always tell people, I changed my eating habits right before 9/11. So it wasn't such a struggle for me to eat a certain way because I basically ate that way. And that's the reason it was like a red flag. Okay, you're not losing any weight. You shouldn't be gaining weight based upon what you eat. And so sitting in the group sessions as I would go for my checkup and people would talk, I was listening to them and I could see the struggle that some folks were having. Well, I happen to be a cook. I love cooking and cooking is very cathartic for me. So I'm listening to them and people are saying this, they're saying that. And then for me, since I love to cook and I still cook for regular people, meaning I'll use things that I don't use for me when I cook for myself. I was like, okay, how do I combine the love of cooking into a transformative atmosphere, really, so that folks, whether they've had metabolic surgery or they're just individuals who are trying to eat healthy, they engage with food in a healthier stance. Because, I've been big my whole life, guys. And, doctor, so you got to lose weight. Well, okay, it's not that easy. I've tried lots of different programs. It's not that easy. And so it becomes, you sometimes can become defensive and your relationship with food kind of shifts sometimes because you're trying to not gain weight or you're trying to lose weight. And so as you talk about, for me, food can be transformative because when we eat properly, it helps to fuel our body. It helps our cells regenerate, all those good things. So we have to have food, but we have to look at what we're putting in our body. And so with Transformation, my book, and then I started my show, Transform with TAS, where I am in the kitchen cooking and sharing the recipes with my audience, as well as interviewing individuals. I thought, okay, people are saying, I'm trying your recipes. Let's put them together and then give some commentary about how I developed the recipes or what was going through my mind at the time. And so that's how the cookbook was born. It's my way of trying to reach the audience in a different way because we all learn differently. Some people, they can listen to something, they get it, but when they hold it in their hand, they really get it because they may be a tactile learner. And so also I think action is so important. So now you have the recipes and you can watch me cook them, on my Instagram Live where I put everything on my YouTube channel. You can watch me cook and then you can follow along. And so I'm like, okay, this helps individuals to see that they're not alone. Because lots of times, we talk about accountability partners as it relates to losing weight and things of that nature or doing some type of life change. Well, you may be the only person that who is trying to, who want to try the recipes, but you've got me there basically being that cheerleader as you're doing the recipes yourself. So that was sort of the big concept for that.
So tell me how, you said you have your YouTube channel. So what's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Dr. TAS, DRTAS.
TAS.
So on that
just DRTAS.
Mm-hmm. DR, capital D, then R, then capital TAS. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Period. I thought I put the period there. DR period TAS.
Oh, put the period. Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to let people know that they can follow you on your YouTube channel as well. I love that you shared your health journey, and we face, as you said, you've experienced weight challenges your whole life. Others have gone through a life changing situation, and because of medication, secondary, tertiary effects can be, a weight problem. Whether you have cancer and the medications or pituitary issues or high blood pressure. A lot of high blood pressure medicines cause water retention and weight gain. And it becomes this vicious cycle, right? You're trying to stay healthy, but yet you're fighting the ills of the meds you're taking. And we are not here talking against the medications, but we also know that Hippocrates stated that let food be thy medicine. right? So by understanding, and I think it gives us a way to be proactive.
Mhm.
And it's okay if you want that occasional donut or cookie. Okay, life isn't meant to be lived in a state of total limitation or restriction. But I don't know too many people who can go and buy just one Krispy Kreme donut.
Now, LaWanna, now I got to tell you this now. I have not had a Krispy Kreme donut since my surgery. And I like Krispy Kreme donut. I'm in North Carolina, guys, and I think we're the home of Krispy Kreme. If not, I'm gonna say we're the home of Krispy Kreme. But I have not had a Krispy Kreme donut because it's real sugar. And I don't eat real sugar. And I know if I have that, it's going to taste like real sugar. And the reason why, because sometimes it will cause a dumping, the dumping syndrome. And I've never experienced it. But I'm thinking, and again, guys, I'm not a physician, but from what I understand is you feel just sick. You just feel sick, because basically you put something in your system that the body doesn't want there. And so you can almost equate it, perhaps, guys, to like overeating. And it's like, oh, I feel sick now. But that Krispy Kreme donut, I mean, if you're going to have a Krispy Kreme donut, you got to have a glazed donut. And that's the reason I said that real sugar on that glazed donut. But again, I'm with you on that. I don't believe in depriving yourself because I've found over the years, if I want something, go ahead and have that. Because if I don't, I will eat lots of stuff that I really don't want. And then by the time I'm done, I still eat what I wanted. So for me, it's like you ate all those extra calories because you're trying to satisfy this need, this desire, this craving. Just have that craving, but only have a small portion of it. So if you want sweet potato pie, just get a sliver of the sweet potato pie and then to give the rest of it away to your neighbors. But you had your sweet potato pie, you see?
Yeah, I love that. I want to read something that you said.
Okay.
And you said this is in your introduction. You said one of my earliest memories is of being in the kitchen watching my mom cooking dinner. And we can all relate to that, right? I was her sous chef and taster. At the time, I didn't understand how tasting her various foods would develop my palate. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah.
When I was 9, my mom taught me to bake old-fashioned Southern cornbread. I moved quickly from cornbread to home-baked cakes. My love of cooking matured as I did and is the one thing that brings me the most joy. And let's talk about that, because even though you have altered how you eat and that relationship with food, it didn't take away that joy of cooking and preparing food. In fact, you're tapping more into your creative side and creative genius in experimenting and showing people that you can take this comfort food, right, and translate it in a different way that it still gives you comfort, but yet it's healthier. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, actually, I this morning I was cooking before we started, and I made the gingerbread, the oatmeal gingerbread cake recipe that's in the cookbook, and I'm making it, and I created the recipe, but I'm making it. I'm like, But then it was done, and right before we started our interview, I was gonna just put some of this icing on it. It's sugar-free, guys. But then I thought, no, why don't you just smear it like it's a real cake? And I'm going to take a picture of it. And I was like, oh, this looks so good, because I didn't do that the first time when I first created the recipe. And I know people like, well, that brought you joy? Yeah, it did. Because it was like, oh, it's the same recipe, but it's different. And it's like, I don't know what it is about cooking that does it for me. But I think about it sometimes, and it's like education, because I use all of my education, because you're pulling knowledge. It's the math, because you got a third of a cup of this. It's the creative writing, because you're writing recipes. I'm writing it in my brain, and it's like, I don't know. It's really the thing that brings me joy. And like I said, I cook for, I do two things for relaxation. I clean, But as I've told people, when I clean a certain way and I cook a certain way. I organize when I clean. It's an organized cleaning. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to do this. I'm doing no, no. I do it in an organized manner. And so it helps to calm me down and refocus me. And I think with cooking, it's the same sort of thing. I get to, I think this is going to sound really bad the way I'm going to say it. It's almost like an out of body experience because I leave all the cares of the world alone. It's just me and the ingredients and the kitchen and my pots and pans and all my utensils. And everything else is closed out. And so like when you were reading that, I could see myself just smiling because that's what it is. But I think it's because it's the time that nobody else is important. It's that dish and me. And it's the relationship that we have as I am cooking, whatever it is. And it calms me. It soothes me. And I think that goes back to that time, those times, because there were less complicated times, if you think about it. Those who remember being in the kitchen with your mom or your nana, they were less complicated. And it takes me back to that time when life was so pure. We didn't have any worries in the world. And you're just there enjoying life. And that's what cooking does for me. It's life for me. It's just life.
So what would you say to that woman that's listening and thinking, okay, Dr. Taz, that's good for you. I'm glad you love cooking. I'm glad you found your joy factor in the kitchen. But you don't understand. I'm that single mom. I'm having to run from here to there, and it's just easier to grab and go. What would you say to that woman, and how can she use her cookbook to start sprinkling in healthy eating in between the grab and goes?
And since I'm talking about the oatmeal gingerbread cake, and I know someone who's exactly like that, I would start with that recipe. And the reason being is when my mother made the recipe for me, because I sent it to her, I'm like, I got to make sure I got this recipe right. She made the recipe and she's like, okay. And she said, my dad came in and he was like, oh, can I have some of that? And she's like, sure. And he was eating it and he must have asked, what is this? And what kind of cake is this or whatever? And she told him, and he was like, this is not oatmeal. And she said, yes, this is oatmeal. And she probably says one of my recipes. And my mom said to me, if she hadn't prepared it, she would not have believed it was oatmeal. So start with that particular recipe because the kids won't know that it's oatmeal. You know what I'm saying? And they're getting their whole grain. They're getting, and I put artificial sweetener in it, guys. And because I use a certain type, they're getting protein. So start with that. And then just slowly go from there and let that become your favorite dish that you make that they say, please make that, Mom. Just keep making it. And with the oatmeal cake, you can eat it anytime. And I eat it just as if it was cake. And that would be a way to slowly ease your way into using the recipes and also giving you a sense of accomplishment too. Because again, it does take a little time. I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't to cook because you're on the go all the time. Well, you got to take some time and think of it this way also. Maybe it becomes your special time. You make your dishes when you got everybody in bed. You may get up early in the morning and do your special dish. It can be your time for yourself. And because the recipes are healthy, then you get to have that time to prepare them and to reflect on life. But then you create something that's only going to feed your body in a good way. So that's what I would tell the person. Just start small and start with that recipe because that recipe is going to throw you. And when people have it, they're going to be like, oh, really? Can you make that again? Which is going to boost your confidence and you'll continue to make that recipe and then you'll try some of the other ones.
I love that key piece of advice. Start small. To our listening audience, we are here with Dr. Teresa A. Smith, and we are talking about her new book, Transform with TAS, Healthy Recipes, and how you can take charge of your health and wellness by making better choices in what you eat and actually being part of the preparation, right? Don't rely on the restaurants, but you get involved. And when you said start small, sometimes we we get inspired and we get motivated by all these videos, right?
Yes.
And we're like, okay, we run to the store, or we go to the
Yes.
The farmer's market, and our carts are brimming with all,
Yes.
all of this
Yes.
produce. And we come home and we get overwhelmed.
Yep.
And then we end up having a lot of waste because we
Yes.
haven't consumed it. And we go back to old habits. But what you're saying, if we start small and get those little wins and start populating, and maybe it's, if you're single, maybe it's that one meal a day that you're doing something different, right? You're, or maybe it's that side that you're creating. Okay, what can I replace, the mac and cheese with?
Yes.
And start that way. You would be amazed that suddenly it becomes habitual, and the body starts to crave goodness. When you start giving it good food, like my dad, you were asking me how my dad was doing because he had, a medical emergency late summer. And I cooked dinner yesterday, and I've noticed just this whole week, the first thing my dad eats is all his vegetables first. Yep. And I told Mom, I said, his body's craving it. Because I'm adding a lot more of the leafy greens. Really, he still likes the starches, but minimizing the starchy vegetables, going more toward that. And she said, "Yeah, I'm noticing that too. Because he's from the Midwest. He's a meat and potatoes guy, and normally that's the first thing he's eating. But I notice now we don't even have to say, Dad, do this. He's 92. His body is naturally saying, go here first. Then he finishes with the meat and other things second." You said something, you mentioned protein, and here you said, "I thought about my love of cooking and how I can take the foods I like and modify them into healthier version, while at the same time making sure that protein was the star." Why is it so important for us to ensure that we have balanced protein in our diet?
Well, once I had my sleeve surgery, I started to research, because we're supposed to eat our protein first because we eat such small portions. And so that's the opposite of your dad. He can eat more than what I can eat in a sitting. So we have to have the protein, because what I realized was proteins line every aspect of our body, but it helps our body to heal. So what am I saying? It helps our body when we go to sleep at night, our body regenerates. Well, if we don't have enough protein in our system, then that slows the regeneration process, because we're constantly regenerating. I'm trying to think of a way to say it. Well, I can say it this way. We get a cut on our finger. Well, sometimes it takes a long time for a paper cut or something to heal. Well, proteins help cuts heal. So think about what's happening. The cells are regenerating when our cut or whatever heals. That's what happens every night when we go to sleep. Our cells, everything regenerate. Well, when we don't have enough protein, that is impacted. Also, protein helps us to feel full. It fills us up. So that's the reason why I have to eat protein first. And I tell folks who are dieting, or who are my friends or folks that I'm working with, who, they try lots of different diets. And, I'm like, let's just break down these diets. Why are you eating this particular thing first? Or why is it the diet concentrating on this? And sometimes some of the diets have concentrated on protein. We don't think about it. But, I'm not going to name any, but it's protein, protein, protein. Now, some of them will say a certain type of protein. But because proteins are part of that building block, without it, our bodies don't function the way that they should. And we get protein, a little bit of protein from some vegetables, but it's not enough to meet the daily recommended allowance. So that's the reason why I'm like, you got to get your protein in, because it's life-saving. So in other words, what they would have said to me, my nutritionist, I can supplement some of my, my vitamins and minerals, supplements every day. But it's going to be hard for me to supplement the protein. And I got to have protein. We need it for our hair. We need it for our skin. We need it for our nails. We need it for everything. We have to have protein. And so that's the reason why it is so important. And I tell everybody, you make sure you eat enough protein now. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to throw it back to you, LaWanna. Think about it, because I used to do private duty. Think about the insure. And I know there are lots of types of drinks now that they have for older people or individuals whose health have been compromised. But Ensure has the vitamins, but it has the protein. Because think about it, automatically, most of them are milk-based. And then they add other protein there. That's to help the body to help sustain those individuals. So again, we don't think about it in everyday life, but protein is so important for everything that our body needs to do.
I love that. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right. Well, for those of you that are joining us, we are here on Power of the Pen. We are starting with season 3. I cannot believe it's already in our 3rd season. And if you are interested in being a part of Power of the Pen, please reach out to me, LaWanna Bradford, at LaWanna at BradfordGroupMTG.com. The information is below, and all you have to do is put Power of the Pen in the subject line, and we will reach out to you to understand a little bit about you, your book, and how you are making a difference in the world. This platform is designed to elevate and inspire women, writers, highlight their books, but also individuals that may have written works to help elevate women to the best and highest versions of themselves. And today we have none other than Dr. Teresa A. Smith talking about her newest recipe book entitled Transform with TAS, Healthy Recipes. So, Dr. Teresa, I bought your book.
Okay.
And I said, wait a minute. She's talking about healthy recipes. I see banana pudding.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
My favorite food is pizza. I even see a healthy pizza recipe. How did you make banana pudding and pizza healthy? I mean, normally you don't hear those, together. So let's walk through that, because again, this is a woman who is on a mission to help transform lives, and she's doing so mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and helping us to understand how we can be more well by taking control of what we choose to put in our mouths and how we can be part of that preparation. So walk us through that. I mean, how did you make pizza healthy?
Well, now, I think I've got 2 different recipes in there. I think one is just veggie. One is just a veggie with probably peppers. I call the pepper trio, red, yellow, orange peppers, and probably put some mushrooms, probably put some onions. And I may or may not have put mozzarella. Mozzarella, when I go for mozzarella, I go for the light, because that means it's made from partially skimmed milk. So therefore, that's cut down on the fats there. Also, I think I've used 2 different things. I use a store-bought crust, but that's a whole wheat or whole grain crust. So therefore, we're starting there. When I use a marinara sauce, I buy a can, or either I use some of my own fresh tomatoes and I blend it up and make a marinara sauce. So I'm adding my own spices to it. So therefore, I don't have the preservatives. It's fresh.
And added sugar, right? Because people don't realize how much sugar is added in those bottles, right? Our salad dressings,
absolutely,
and marinara sauces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the reason why I just start doing that. Because when I started my weight journey 20 years ago now, I stopped buying pre-made things, and I did everything myself. And as I tell some people, sometimes we're talking about it, I said I could taste the sweetness in a potato. And I think I did some fresh okra my dad gave me recently. And I said to someone, because I cut them up and I roasted them in the oven with a little salt and a little pepper and spices, and that was it, a little oil. But I could taste the sweetness. And people are like, you could taste the sweetness? I could, because there was nothing else there. And when you're eating just that fruit, that vegetable, that carb, even in its natural state, you taste it differently. And so with the pizza, I'm like anybody else. Sometimes I need a pizza. But I'm craving the cheese typically for me. And my nutritionist told me that I wasn't eating enough carbs. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to get carbs in, because we do need carbs also for the body to function properly. But then sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a wrap. Those wraps like you may get at a sub place, they'll wrap your sandwich. I'll take a wrap, I'll lay that out. I'll do whatever type of sauce I'm going to put on the bottom. Sometimes I don't do a sauce. I'll put that there. I'm thinking now, why don't you do a wrap and then do some either refried beans, guys? I'm making this up because I'm thinking about it as we're talking. I love cooking. Refried beans, because I don't think I've done this yet. Refried beans are basically refried black beans. Layer that as your sauce. I don't think I did it. Who knows? I may have. And you haven't gotten that recipe yet. And then start putting my toppings. Build it from there. Because then for me, if you think about what I've just done, I've layered protein. Then I'm going to put vegetables. And then I may add some more protein. And then I'll use my low-fat cheese. So therefore, it's protein on top of protein on top of protein. And that one, if I put the vegetables, you got a little vegetable. So I'm always thinking, as you just saw, I'm always thinking about how to make it healthier. Because remember, if I do a little small, sometimes I make it on a not wheat thin, on a flatbread. I think that's what a flatbread or sandwich thin. That's what I'm thinking about. And I've learned that there's some sandwich thins that are still too thick for me. Meaning it's like think of a bun, but it's a thin bun. It's still too thick because if I eat all that bread, I haven't eaten my protein. So there's a company and a store where I live at that is very thin. So I'll get that and I'll make my pizza from that. And so again, it's just being very conscious and very intentional about what you're eating. Now let's just flip to that banana pudding. Well, bananas are high in potassium. We need that. It helps with leg cramps and things of that nature. Well, sometimes I want something different. And so with my banana pudding, I had bananas that were basically gone. And so I'm like, what you going to do with them? And so I'm like, I'm going to make banana pudding. Well, I use sugar-free Jell-O pudding mix. And so I pulled that out. So that gave me the flavor, but it's sugar-free. With that particular recipe, I decided that I need to pick me up. So I used some Irish cream because that just boosted the flavor. Because remember, it's sugar-free. So I'm adding flavor. You're not really going to taste any alcohol. And then I'm always buying things. And so, of course, you can use vanilla wafers, but I didn't have any vanilla wafers. I bought these, probiotic cookies, and sometimes I've got sugar-free cookies that I've bought. And so I used them, and I layered it just as you would a traditional banana pudding. I didn't do a meringue or anything like that. I made my pudding, but with this one, of course, since I only eat a little bit of food, and I got to have protein, I added protein. So I think with that particular recipe, I added vanilla protein powder. So again, it's healthy because there's no sugar added. And I got protein powder. And I think with that one, I use milk. So therefore, I would have used my protein milk, the probiotic cookies, probiotic, to help our systems, evacuate. So that was healthy. And even if I'd have had sugar-free cookies, I think with that one, I used some graham crackers. And anybody that's had children, graham crackers, they're not sweet. It's just a little cracker for a little kid. So I had some, and so I used that. But for me, LaWanna, it was like, okay, you want this, or it's not necessarily that I wanted it per se, but you're going to use those bananas, so you're going to make banana pudding. How are you going to do it so that you will eat it? Because otherwise I would have used the bananas, but I wouldn't have eaten it. And I'm so conscious of protein. It's like, if I eat a bite of something, it's got to be good for my body, meaning for my body to function. And so that's how I come up with it. How is it that I can layer protein? Because, for those of us who eat small portions, I may eat 3 bites, and that's it. And so, well, I shouldn't say 3 bites. Let me be a little more. I may eat 5 bites. And that's all that I'm eating at that time. So those 5 bites have to actually have some protein. And of course, everybody who's watched my show, I have to have a crunch. That's the one thing that I have noticed more than anything. And I knew it before my surgery, but since I eat little meals now, I really know it. I was eating little meals then, but they were bigger little meals. Everything is soft. And it's like with that recipe, I sprinkled nuts. I sprinkled walnuts, I think I had that I put on it. You could have done pecans, but I had walnuts because one, it gave me a crunch, which gave me the texture difference between the pudding and my bananas that were really, really soft, but it was another protein. Because again, I'm layering protein every way that I can. And even with that one, LaWanna, I'll tell folks, now you can spruce that up, to your taste, And I said I didn't do the meringue. Well, a meringue is what cream of tartar and egg whites. So I really could have done the meringue. I just wasn't thinking about it. So I got to stop talking to you, LaWanna, because see, I'm writing a cookbook to talk to you all the time.
You're gonna have volume 2 coming out soon.
Absolutely.
Well, we've given credit to your mom and just the inspiration that you've had in the kitchen with her. I want to talk a little bit about your dad.
Okay.
In your book, you said, I wouldn't say I'm a daddy's girl, but my father has always been very instrumental in my life. He was always in the home and ensured his family had what they needed. Now he's retired and has been supportive of my healthy cooking. Let's be honest. He's always liked my food, but now he's always game to tasting new recipes and give me his opinion. Not only does he eat my food, but he also supplies me with fresh fruits, vegetables, beans, and meat. Daddy bought deer meat and asked me if I wanted some. Of course, the answer was yes. Then I thought, what are you going to do with deer meat? I decided to make chili. My motto is use what you have and see how it turns out. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about that in our last few minutes.
Okay. Well, like I said, my dad, I don't have brothers and I'm the oldest too. So he is really rallying behind my my cooking. And so he's game for anything. And so my mom, she's not, venison, she's not really that ain't really her thing, but she does cook some of the things now that he's been bringing it in. And so, he knows I'm cooking and he's like, you want this? You want that? I'm like, well, yeah. And then I'm like, well, what am I going to do with it? And so it was the venison chili. And he did get some of it. He said it was good. But it's just, I think the thing that I want to leave you with as far as me and my dad is I have 4 degrees and my father paid for all of them. And I know he's proud of me. I know that, but it's something, I think he sees my passion and that's the only way I can say. I think he sees my passion for what I'm doing. And so to have him to step in and support me in this way now, at this stage in my life, it means the world to me. He did all those other things as far as my degrees, but this is my passion and he is supporting that in every way that he can. And, this summer what type of jam did I make? Oh, I made strawberry. Because he's like, you want some strawberries? I'm like, yeah, I'll make some jam. And so, and a year before last was the first time I'd ever made jam. I made peach jam and I gave them some and they liked it. Of course, it's sugar-free. They liked it. And I didn't think my strawberry jam turned out well, guys, but one jar didn't seal. And I've been eating it and I'm like, oh yeah, it's sweet enough. And so I gave them theirs and they may have already eaten it. But just that one thing, if you think about it, he gave me strawberries. He gave me my jars because I'm like, I got to get jars. And he's like, well, I'll be looking too. And he gave me my jars. And then, he got the byproduct. And I guess for me, as I'm getting older, I'm becoming a daddy's girl. I love both of my parents, but just to see him and my mom in 2 different ways playing a role in this new path that I'm on, that's gold. That's gold. It's priceless. So I realize just how fortunate I am. And also it's something that we can talk about that's unique to us. because I got two other sisters. They have the thing that they can talk to him about, but they don't talk to him about this stuff. And it's like I'm gaining an education also because he grew broccoli. He grew broccoli this year too, but I wasn't down there to get any. But he grew broccoli the other year, and I was like, I didn't even know broccoli. I had no idea what broccoli looked like on the ground. So he actually is helping to educate me also. And so when I go home, I'm gonna bring back. I'm supposed to collards in a pot, and when I do, I'll take a picture and put it out there so folks can see it. Because I said to him, with the way I eat, all I need is one plant. And whenever I want some collards, just go out there and cut off 2 leaves and cut them up and saute them in a skillet. And that's more than enough. But to think that we've come to that place in our lives where his passion for gardening and in my passion for cooking have kind of come together. And it's like a perfect partnership. And for me, you couldn't ask for anything better. So I'm very fortunate to have my father support everything that I've ever done and to support me at this time in my life also.
What a beautiful tribute, both to your mom on the front end and now your father. And like you said, your two passions have intersected.
Yes.
For a time such as this, to now you're taking his legacy in a unique way, platforming it to help women and men who are exposed to your story and your message to live a better, healthier life. That's powerful. So thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing this amazing recipe book, Transform with TAS, Healthy Recipes by Dr. Teresa A. Smith. And before we sign off, I'm going to allow you to share 2 to 3 minutes with the audience, whatever it is that you want to do. And please go to Amazon.com, get a copy of your book. Also follow Dr. Taz on Instagram at Dr. Teresa Smith. Take it away.
Thank you. Again, thank you, LaWanna, for letting me be a part of your season 3. And to her audience, life happens to all of us. And it's up to us to determine how we're going to respond to what life is throwing at us. I want to leave you with the thought that you are stronger than that moment, that incident that is occurring in your life. And if you start small and whatever it is that you are trying to overcome, you can be successful. You will be successful. You will have setbacks. But the setbacks are only there to propel you further down the road along your destination. So don't become discouraged with that. Things are not always rosy with me, even though I've had, gastric sleeve surgery. I have to constantly be mindful of what I put in my mouth. I have to exercise. And that's the way life is. So again, my message is start where you are. If you fall back one day, don't beat yourself up. Just get up the next day and start again. And I hope that the recipes and some of the stories that I shared in my Transform with TAS Healthy Recipes will inspire you not only to eat healthy, but also to be well in all aspects of your life. Wellness is a key for living a well-balanced life. And to each of you, I wish you the very best as you start your path to wellness.
Thank you. This has been amazing. Definitely check out her YouTube channel. And your YouTube channel, let me put it here, Dr. Taz. So they can go to Dr. Taz and look at all your amazing recipes. And please go to Amazon.com, get your book, follow her on Instagram, and start small. Don't become overwhelmed. Just take one recipe, try it. And the one that you said is the oatmeal.
The gingerbread oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
or the meatballs, okay, or the meatloaf for those people who are meat lovers. They are very, very good.
Okay, well, thank you so very much, Dr. Taz, for joining us. And to our listening audience, we look forward to seeing you next week for another edition of Power of the Pen. Until next time, be safe, everyone.